We'll kick off with my session, where my goal is to share with you some of what we've learned when building full patient journeys using a different combination of LLMs, to just share what works and what doesn't as of today. We'll start with an introduction about where Johnson Labs is and what we do today, and then talk about the different types of LLMs and where they fit in these solutions. So Johnson Labs' role in the healthcare and life science ecosystem is to provide state-of-the-art medical language models. We started with NLP models, and we still build those. There's more than 2,500 of them that are available. But over the past 2 years, we've also invested a lot in providing healthcare-specific large language models. And as of now, it's based on different benchmarks, both academic, public, open source benchmarks, as well as head-to-head evaluations by medical doctors, and of course, production deployments. Our goal is to provide you the most accurate LLMs specifically for a subset of medical tasks. Those LLMs are available. They're being used. If you thought we still only do NLP, then for a long time we don't. Right now on the AWS marketplace, as well as on other marketplaces, you can get Johnson Labs medical LLMs, as well as specific models for specific modalities like speech to text, image de-identification, of course, text analysis, and you also have endpoints that combine kind of LLM and NLP and other types of algorithms together. Right now, if you go on Amazon Bedrock, Johnson Labs is one of the few providers chosen by Amazon to be on that marketplace, and is actually the only domain-specific and the only healthcare-specific LLMs on that marketplace. What we do every day is look at every new LLM, every new paper, every new benchmark, every new claim that someone makes, and we train dozens of models per week. We reproduce and run benchmarks, and we keep adding to the set of benchmarks we have, so that we can keep our one promise to this entire community, and that's that we will keep you with the state of the art. So usually with us, it's you don't license one model and you stick with it, but really what you have working for you is a sizable team of data scientists and medical doctors that make sure that accuracy keeps advancing. We've been releasing software every 2 weeks for more than 8 years now, and we keep, of course, doing this now in the LLM age. Everything we do runs within your infrastructure, so there's no API that you call and you send your data to, because that's often a problem if you have PHI data, if you're running within a secure environment. Instead, we actually engineer the models to be smaller so they can run on more efficient hardware. Everything runs within your infrastructure, within your security perimeter. Your data never leaves that environment at all. So really, this is designed for high compliance environment. And the third important thing to know about kind of really what we do that's different is the pricing. We're basically the only provider of models that does not price per token. We price per server per year. So once you pay for the server, you can have unlimited use of that server. And actually, when you license a server, there's no limit on the server size, which means that if you have one page of text, yes, will probably be more expensive than just paying for that number of tokens on a page. But if you need to analyze 100,000 patients, 1 million patients, 10 million patients, billions of tokens and lines of text, we are going to be far cheaper than basically any other option on the market. And that's our goal here, really to optimize for large-scale enterprise deployment. Johnson Labs provides licensed software. We also provide solutions, and some of what you'll hear about today and tomorrow are about how organizations implemented things like patient risk adjustment, matching patients to clinical guidelines, matching patients to clinical trials, doing automated data abstraction, oncology, psychiatry, other domains. But what I'd like to focus on now is our solution for building patient journeys. And that's an end-to-end solution that includes software that we built and also a team that can come and help you implement it if you need it. That integrates multimodal patient data, and right now we support tabular structured data, FHIR data, unstructured text, and PDFs. It integrates information about a large body of patients, integrates all the information that you have about those patients over years, as you can see in the examples here, and then enable you really to just ask questions about it. So you can ask natural language questions about the patient's timeline or history or plan. You can also build patient cohorts using an API or a UI, and the system has the ability to manage confidence, to explain, to cite its sources, and make kind of common sense clinical inferences. So, for example, if you have the patient with the timeline from the previous slide, and for someone you've known for 10 years, really you can have thousands of pages, right, and hundreds of encounters, visits, prescriptions, labs, radiology, and so on. At the end, you want to be able to give a prompt, just like the prompt here. Describe and document the source of any information about preventative care and screenings about this patient, and just get a summarized answer. And as you can see here, based on the amount of data and modalities of data you've integrated, you just want the system to kind of figure out the raw data and give you the best answer it can based on the data it has, and then be able to explain it. So how do you go about building such a system? The one important thing to remember is that you cannot just expect to take all the information about the patient, shove it into a long context LLM, and get reasonable answers. Because this is the first thing people think about. Yeah, I'll send a PDF, and I'll send some FHIR, and I'll send some free text, and I'll just give it as a very long context thing and just ask my questions. It just doesn't work. First of all, it just does not work currently with the accuracy that LLMs have. Even LLMs that claim to have 128K or even 1 million or 2 million long context window do not provide accuracy for such long context in effect, because most of the training data is usually for much shorter prompts. So you're going to see accuracy issue. But more importantly, for the typical patient, it's just not enough. So if you are a cancer patient in the US, you generate more than 1,000 pages of text per year, meaning that if you have an LLM with a context window of 1 million tokens, you cannot fit even a single patient for a single year, let alone a full patient journey over several years. And if you're looking at a whole healthcare system, you can say, no, I have 10 million patients, and I have information about them for the last 10, 15 years. You are 7 orders of magnitude away from being able to do this way. So what we've built is a slightly more complex architecture, what's shown here, that takes the information from multiple sources, multiple modalities, also information updates in different times, right? So FHIR messages may just come in as they come, versus DICOM images or PDF maybe only arrive in a batch, right, every hour or every 24 hours. We take the data, we do information extraction, we normalize the data, we index it. Then in the middle, there's a reasoning component, where at the end we go from bronze, silver to a gold data structure that is a relational data structure based on the open OMOP data model. And it was very important for us to get to a point where we go with an open industry standard data model that's been generated. And then on the right, you see the kind of the third component, which is be able to generate cohorts and answer questions accurately. So let's start with the information extraction stage. The information extraction stage includes a combination of LLMs optimized for information extraction and NLP models that are fine-tuned to extract specific entities. As you may know, Johnson Labs healthcare NLP models can, with already existing pre-trained fine-tuned models, extract more than 400 types of medical entities. So you can extract things that are much more specific than symptoms, diagnosis, and drugs. You can extract social determinants of health, medical devices, tumor characteristics, radiology findings, psychological abnormalities, severity, codes, calculations, and so forth. You can also extract relationships and extract also assertion statuses. So you can see in the example here, it's important to know whether an event happened in the past or in the future, whether something happened to the patient or to someone else, right? So if I have a family history of a certain type of cancer, is very different than I have a personal history of that cancer, although both are relevant. So we need to be able to extract this information along with confidence values and reference provenance to the source data. This is one of the things that we have focused on and trained our own medical LLM to excel at. So the three key tasks that we test and fine-tune our LLM on are clinical information extraction, clinical text summarization, and medical question answering. In all of these, in addition to testing on public benchmarks, we've also done blind evaluations by practicing medical doctors, meaning we have, for example, a question. Here's a visit summary or a discharge summary. Now we need to create a summary of the document. We do it with our model here. We also did it with GPT-4o. We show it to practicing medical doctor, but we say this is model 1, this is model 2. We don't tell, we randomize the order and we make it blind. And then we ask them to rank or decide which is better on 3 dimensions: factuality, clinical relevance, and conciseness. And of course, we do this across a large body of questions and have techniques to optimize for inter-annotator agreement and agreement over time. And as you can see, overall, Johnson Labs models are preferred in this case over GPT-4o heavily. So across all tests, it was between 45 and 92% additional preference to our models. The other thing you need to do, even if you don't have a text or PDF, DICOM, that information needs to be extracted from, you need to be able to understand medical terminologies. So if you have, for example, FHIR messages, you may have long codes, RX norm codes, or other codes that need to be mapped to standard OMOP terminologies. And that's usually mostly a case of really just having the accurate and current mapping in place. Johnson Labs now actually has a full terminology server product that is embedded as part of the solution, so that whether you're looking to do code mappings, right, with concept maps, or you're looking at a string of text that you extracted from a document and you need to map it to the most relevant code, you have a whole terminology server at your disposal that can do that, maps to most of the currently used standard terminologies, is kept up to date, and as the name said, is AI-enabled, meaning it does not just do string matching or that type of lookup. It can do semantic matching so that it can deal with things like synonyms, shortcuts, spelling mistakes, or just things that are said in a different way in different medical contexts. One important thing to know when you're doing information extraction, or in general, if you're not working in the kind of the language understanding space, LLMs are not a good fit for everything you do. As you said, they do a lot, but it's just an algorithm, and we need to know to use the right tool for the right job. Specifically, there are 2 things that LLMs are not designed for and do not do well on. One is clinical coding. So if you have either a document or you have a phrase and you want to understand the right SNOMED code, ICD-10 code, loan code, whatever may be the case, this is a task that LLMs are generally quite poor at doing compared to other cheaper, faster, more reasonable alternatives. So coding is generally something that I would not recommend to do with an LLM. The second thing you do not generally use LLMs for is de-identification. With de-identification, it's quite binary. Either you do it at near perfect accuracy, so 98, 99% accuracy, or in a sense, it doesn't matter. So LLMs now, yes, they can de-identify text, but if you do it, let's say, 92, 93, 94% accuracy, it still means that the human needs to review each and every example, which means that you really haven't done much, and you're not really de-identifying automatically at scale. So I'd say those are 2 of the tasks that, at least as of things stand today, we do not do with LLMs and not recommend it, not only because of cost and speed, but also because of accuracy. So you're building your patient journey and you want to ask about it. You've done the document understanding, the information extraction part. The next challenge in building kind of really a useful, enriched OMOP data model you can query is medical reasoning. And there are at least 2 reasons why you need this. One is to be able to merge and deduplicate facts. One of the challenges when you're combining, say, structured EHR data and maybe some FHIR data and maybe something you extract from text, is that you're going to have a whole lot of duplication effects and a lot of things that are at different levels of certainty or different levels of specificity. Okay, so I'd say, here I say I have pain, here I say I have hip pain, here I say I have a pain in the left hip. You just want to take the most specific one. Those are not three separate symptoms. Or, for example, you could have my diagnosis from 3 days ago and my diagnosis from today. And by reading the text, you should know, look, 3 days ago, we thought you had something. It turned out it was wrong. Now just use the new one. That, even if you only ingesting structured data, that is a reasoning problem. Okay, what do we do with diagnosis that change? What do we do with blood pressure that fluctuates? Right? What do we do with the other clinical facts? The second need for reasoning is to make clinical inferences. Okay, and it could be as simple as the patient is a 28-year-old female weighing 210 pounds. Is she obese? Yes or no? Okay, which means you need to know the calculation, right? You need to know the kind of the business logic around it, and you need to provide an answer and explain it. Or it could be that you calculated different risk scores, right? Because once you have a really kind of thorough understanding of the entire patient over time, this actually becomes an excellent platform to both calculate and productize many different types of patient risk scores, which also involves doing this sometimes fairly complex calculation. And that's also, no matter what modalities the data came from, it does not even have to be unstructured. It is a reasoning problem to do the calculations accurately and correctly and explain them. So the problem is not solved, but one thing that I'm happy to kind of announce, or re-announce today, is that Johnson Labs 2 weeks ago introduced the first ever commercially available healthcare-specific reasoning LLM. So that model is available in two sizes, 14B and 32B, both of them with a 32K context window. As you can see here, we have metrics of two kinds. One of them are kind of just the healthcare specific classic kind of question answering, medical licensing exam questions, where you can see the model does better and slightly better than the general purpose LLM using the reasoning capability. The second thing we measure the model on is kind of just general reasoning benchmarks to see that it does well on things like just basic mathematics, big bench hard, kind of just general reasoning models to see that the model generalizes beyond the kind of the specific few hundred questions that are medically tested in existing benchmarks. A medical reasoning LLM, or in general, a reasoning LLM is a completely different beast than a general purpose LLM in terms of how you train it. So yes, the result yes, you have an API, you send the prompt, you get the result back. As you know, the results are usually much more verbose. And this is useful to clinicians, right? When you give them an answer, okay, explain your thinking. Because maybe you're based on a diagnosis, maybe I'm not sure about this diagnosis at all, or I don't know if the test actually is robust or reliable. So I want to understand really your entire chain of thought, which the reasoning model outputs. But on top of that, the training process is very different. So we've built and used 62,000 specific examples of clinical reasoning traces. We've used the DeepSeek R1 kind of recipe for the training, so included things like medical decision tree integration and self-consistently verification layers as part of the process. So really, it's completely different than the just kind of traditional LLMs in terms of how it's built and how it works. So you've extracted information from multiple modalities over time. Then you've applied some reasoning so you can calculate risk scores and resolve, or at least address, some uncertainties and some conflicting information. And now what you want to do is answer some questions. Okay, so for example, one of the things that the product allows you to do is to build cohorts. So if you ask a question like what drugs are prescribed after patients are diagnosed with atrial fibrillation, you just want to get the list. And of course, you want to be able to click in and to a patient, understand why they were chosen into the cohort. And the interesting thing here are if you say something like atrial fibrillation, it may be multiple procedures that carry the same name. When you say after patients are diagnosed, that maybe there's fine print there. What do you mean? Like, is it the same day, several days later, several weeks later? So there's a lot of fine print that you want the model to assume. But at the end, this is what you want. You want end users or not data analysts or data scientists to just ask the questions, not bother with knowing the data model, which may have hundreds of tables, terminologies, code sets. But that kind of the whole point is to abstract that away so that people can just ask questions and get their answers. So here's what we've learned about how to address this problem. So the first thing I can tell you is that you definitely want to use healthcare specific LLMs. This is not exactly a text to SQL problem. So one of the things we've tried to do, both with all the available text to SQL LLMs and models out there, as well as kind of just LLM kind of fine tuning, to see, okay, we have this OMOP data set, someone asks a question, can you just map it to a SQL query and run it? It does not work nearly as well as you think in terms of accuracy, in the sense that most of the time to actually give you the wrong answer, even with the best frontier models available today. And these are the main three problems. First of all, accuracy. Most text to SQL solutions, and really all the major cloud providers, analytics platforms have this kind of capability today. They're designed for a smaller number of tables, so they work best if you have 5 to 10 tables. They work okay if you have 30 to 40 tables and you're very specific about prompting and take a long time to be specific there. They do not work on medical data where you have 100, 200, 300 medical tables, as well as several dozen terminologies, where a fairly simple 1 or 2 line query can easily be 6, 7, 8 joins to get an answer. The second problem you're going to have is consistency. You cannot tell a medical doctor, oh, if you don't like the answer, just run it again. You'll get a different list of patients. You do it once and you lose any credibility with your end users. Okay, that's just not acceptable within this kind of domain. I ask questions, I want the answer. And the third problem is speed. When you have even say 1 million patients, you're going to have on the order of between 500 million to 1 billion kind of clinical events, right? So between admissions, prescriptions, lab results, notes, progress notes, and so on. And that scale of a database means that you need to optimize it. You need indexes, you need materialized views, you need to optimize the queries to run quickly on the data set, because the goal is for end users to be able to ask questions and within seconds get an answer, right, on this very large scale set. And it's not acceptable to generate some SQL and have it take minutes or sometimes hours, especially when there are multiple users competing on the same SQL server at the end. So this is really not a text to SQL problem. And what we do when we have those cases today in the AI space, we build agents. So what you do is you build agents that go step by step and solves the problem kind of the right way, the same way an engineer or data analyst would. So here, once we have the query, first of all, we understand what tables and what columns we need to query. We call the terminology service, and they come and say, oh, they want hypertension. What exactly is hypertension? Right? So if it's a symptom code, okay, what are the SNOMED code that we're going to count? What are the concept sets? Then we decide which of a pre-specified set of queries we're going to call. So we only call queries that we know we optimized, and then out of those queries, we build the answer. And so that's what we had to implement. And I think that a lot of the kind of first agentic implementations today are those kinds of things where you have a task, you come and say, look, you cannot just ask an LLM to do it. You need to have an agent that plans exactly how this needs to be done within this environment. And that's what we've done here. The third and last thing we've learned is that the explanation really is just as important as the answer, especially for end users, because very often they'll ask a question like, find patients with hypertension and diabetes by gender. And as you give them the answer, they come and say, wait, when I say hypertension, here's what I actually mean, right? And when I say patients, no, I mean my patients, right? And my patient means people I've seen in the past 12 months or assigned to me and so forth. Even gender, right, may have its own definition. So what we've seen is that really what you do, especially with a non-technical end user, is you take the questions, you read it back to them. Here is you gave me one sentence, here's the half page of what I understood, all the fine print from your answer. You iterate over that, and then you're ready to execute. Because that really explainability is very important. Otherwise, people just look at the answer and just tell you why it's wrong, right? Because it does not fit their mental model of how you should have understood the question. So here is some of what we've learned. As you can see right now, complex solutions like patient journeys really have three different types of LLMs. They have the information extraction piece, they have the reasoning piece, and they have the question answering conversational piece. You can ask our help to build this kind of solution or other solutions, or you can build it on your own. The last thing I want to say is that everything I've shown you is available to you right now. And one thing we're announcing now with Johnson Labs is a great simplification of the way we license software, which is introducing a universal license key. So your next license key from Johnson Labs will probably be that kind of key, which enables you to mix and match and use any of those products. Okay, so for example, if currently you're using, say, the healthcare LLM, the healthcare NLP for the identification, you want to try the medical LLM or you want to try the reasoning LLM, you can just do it. Because as you can see on the table, each one of those requires one license key. So you can install it. You can use the same license key there, and just mix and match or move between them. All of our licenses are kind of floating licenses in the sense that you can install the software wherever you want in as many environments as you want. There's no limit on number of users or servers or any of that. A license is only locked once a service starts. Okay, so for example, once you actually start a medical LLM, it locks the license. When you shut down that API or that container, that license is released. Same thing if you use the generative AI lab or use the terminology server. So basically what this means is that once you have a license, you have a license to everything we do. It keeps you with the state of the art, right? So when you have a license key for a year, it means that for that year, you get all the new products, all the new updates, all the new releases, right? So we make sure you stay the state of the art. We make sure you have access to new reasoning LLM, new types of LLMs, new identification modalities, new information extraction, fine-tuned models. Everything kind of is within the same package. You can and you're encouraged and welcome to try the new terminology server, new LLMs, and you can build solutions that really mix and match them however you need. And our promise and our responsibility is to make sure that, of course, all of them solve your problem. We'll support you as well, and really we'll make sure that whatever you do, you have the most accurate healthcare-specific models for your projects now and in the future. And with that, thank you very much. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.